Hello there and welcome. As always, you can call me Mikhail or Michael. Before I start this video, I want to say thank you all who decided to support me financially, be it through Patreon, PayPal or Super Thanks. I really appreciate your generosity, so thank you friends, and have a blessed day. Today we will discuss all the territorial changes that happened on the front line within the last 24 hours, and first stop will be in Avdiivka city, where all throughout last day, Russian forces continued their relentless attacks all across the front line, with some serious results to show. Situation near Tonenke continued to develop, as within the last 24 hours, Russian forces were not only able to consolidate their gains around recently captured village of Severna, but also established a bridgehead within Tonenke village, with those territories coming in under Russian control. As you can see with those changes, village of Severna is now out of reach for the Ukrainian counterattacks. And with it, the battle for Tonenke have started. Russians are already holding on to a bridgehead within the village, and the better half of it is now within the gray zone. As I speak, the battle here continues, as Russians storm streets and buildings within this small village, withstanding continuous Ukrainian counterattacks. Judging by the reports coming in from this portion of the front, Russians are slowly coming on top, and more territorial changes within Tonenke should come in short notice. Then of course there's also a situation near the village of Orlivka, which after fall of Lastachkine, Russians started storming immediately, not only from the village itself but also from Avdiivka Copeland, advancing along this road here, and it seems that they were able to reach the village from both sides, and are currently fighting within it in attempt to establish a bridgehead within first buildings and streets. Here Ukrainians also counterattack in obvious attempt to stop the Russians, but due to the fact that the battle for Orlivka nearly started, information about it is extremely fresh. Russians also advanced from recently captured Stepova in the direction of Berdychi, and as recent report suggests, had already reached its first streets and initiated the battle for it. And with those territories coming in under Russian control within the last 24 hours, it does make sense, as with it, Russians captured this tree line adjacent to the village itself, thus gaining ability to enter it and start fighting for it. The recent capture of Stepova also helped, as Russians used this settlement as a staging point for their further attacks in the direction of Berdychi. Here too, Ukrainians are constantly counterattacking, however, seemingly with no result. Of course, here Ukrainians are using best that they have, and as you know, recently Ukrainians lost an Abrams tank. First, here on this video you can see this tank advancing somewhere what would seem to be Avdiivka frontline. Then on this video you can see something burning up, which seemingly is Abrams tank, or at least that's what the sources are claiming. And now on this photo you can see the end result. The manner of damage that the Abrams sustained implies that this was the work of a Lancet drone, because usually Lancet drones target these weak spots of the tank, and we already saw this kind of damage on Leopard 2 tanks. Now as you can see by the photo, the hatches are open. This would mean that the crew escaped, but we can also see that the insides of the tank had significantly or completely burned out. If that is the case, this is a total loss for Ukraine, with this tank turning into scrap metal. Ukrainian forces were also counterattacking from the settlement of Ochertini in the direction of Russian positions located around Krasnohorivka and Stepova. As you can see now, those two villages protecting the flank of the Russian forces that are currently attacking in the direction of Berdychi, Semenivka and Orlivka. So attacking in its direction make a lot of sense. However, as you can see here on this video, that too resulted in a failure. On the video you can see Ukrainian Bradley targeted by Russian ATGM crews being hit and severely damaged. The territorial changes that I discussed was also acknowledged by pro-Ukrainian sources. Here was the situation of yesterday, and here is the situation of today, with these territories coming in under Russian control. So as you can see, Ukrainians acknowledged the fall of Stepova as well as the fall of Severne and the start of the battle for Tonenke, Orlivka and Berdychi. As these villages are being slowly captured by the Russians, Ukrainians continuously retreat further back. As you can see by the topography map, their defensive line is currently taking place along Berdychi, Semenivka, Umanske, and up to this lake, As you can see, those positions are elevated above these open fields and these settlements. And with the fall of Tonenki, Orlivka, Berdychi, and Semenivka, Russians will gain access to attack all across this small plateau in the direction of Novobahmutivka, Solovyove, Novopokrovske, and Novosilka, Persha. These villages are also located on the tactical heights, as you can see by the topography map, which will allow Ukrainians to establish yet another strong fortified positions located on the high ground, with again all this small plateau being clearly visible for the Ukrainian forces. So it seems next few weeks will be very interesting and very informative when it comes to territorial changes. The intensity of Russian attacks don't stop, and in fact grow as days go by. Now, at this point in time, not only do I want to know your opinion on this whole situation, how fast and how quickly will Russians move up on this portion of the front, but while you're at it, I would also kindly ask you to consider supporting this video with a like, comment, and of course, a subscription. Those actions help promote this video to a wider audience, thus helps spread the message. Thank you in advance, and let's move on. From Avdiivka, let's move to Krasnohorivka and discuss recent Russian territorial gains to the very south of the village as a result of storming operations conducted not only from the recently captured Marinka, but also from this stronghold which Russians captured about half a year ago. Russian forces were able to significantly advance here in this area, capturing those territories within the last 24 hours. With it, Russians immediately started storming first buildings and streets within Krasnohorivka, and at the time of recording, the battle for the settlement still carries on. As you can see, Russians had little to no luck attacking from the east, due to the fact that this was the border of 2014, which was heavily fortified by the Ukrainians, and little to no territorial gains were made all throughout the war. However, with the fall of Marinka, Ukrainian flank was exposed. This allowed Russians to bypass serious fortifications that was stopping Russians from attacking here in this area. Those fortifications were built in 2014, and ever since then, more and more fortifications were built in this area, so very fortified sector. And with this recent attack, Russians are able to bypass them completely. From Krasnohorivka, at last, let's move to the Bahmut city and discuss the situation here. Despite Russian attacks and Ukrainian counterattacks happening all across the front, most interesting news are coming from Ivanivsky or Krasnoe, where Russian forces continue their storming operations in an attempt to capture the village completely. As a result of heavy fighting, Russians took control over these territories, as you can see on your screen. So more of the village itself as well as open fields to the east of it. Ukrainians, understanding full well how serious the whole situation here is, relentlessly counterattack in attempt to stop the Russians. However, as you can see, so far they are unable to do so, as Russian forces continue their offensive operations right after they repel Ukrainian counterattacks. The very important logistical hub of Chasiv Yar is now being targeted by Russian aviation, with gliding bombs falling on it daily, like you can see here on this video. And here I must draw correlations between Avdiivka and Chasiv Yar. If you remember, right around last week of Battle of Avdiivka, the intensity of Russian aviation strikes increased significantly, with bombs falling upon the defenders of the city hourly. Here we see the same situation, with Russian aviation becoming extremely active. So in a way, the battle for Ivanivsky is fought in Chasiv Yar. Russian strikes within the city destroy Ukrainian logistics, supplies, and reinforcements. The more they do so, the less will reach the front line, thus significantly decreasing Ukrainian defensive capabilities. With this, I end today's video. Hopefully it was to your liking and was informative enough. As always, humanity calls me to condemn all violence against human beings. Have a good day, and always remember, Russia will be free and great.